As I said, we provide access to, you can go and find more information. Sorry about this. And of course, there is the agreement. I'm choosing to apply for an employee labor program using the ID, granting regulated industries database the opportunity to access their information. The interesting thing here is that this is kind of like subtle thing. It's regulated industries database. It's not regulated industries. And they're not being individually considered, not because it's microscope. This thing happens on the hood. It happens on the back. And then I think also important here, we want to make sure that people, the programs that deny incorrect that, they should have some sort of recourse. That's important. And something with the roots of personal touch, some considering the application, you might feel like I have a course. I think I've been treated wrongly. So we want to make sure that people don't have information about what they do. So I put it here, and if you are denied a permit, then you can find out why you're denied a permit and how to go about it. But then in the system, you go to get your permit.
Let's go back.
Yeah, sure.
This reflects the feedback we got from Tyler yesterday, where we had originally listed everything the application was going to look for. And if you click back, you don't have to go. If you wanted to look at the application, there's a laundry list of things it's looking for. What we look down to is instead of listing everything which the user will never read, which is defeating the purpose of this entire mechanism, we want people to fully understand, have notice, and choice, and control over what and how their data is being used for. It's essentially just boil it down to what they're going to do. Listen, we need some basic demographic info, and then we're going to look at kind of, your felony history, whether you're a violent sex offender or you have a drug offense. And that's, we want to know if there's something in your persona that signals to us that you should not be allowed to serve people alcohol. That's a matter of policy for the city council to decide, but that's essentially the question they're asking. So we think we convey that concept with just this basic understanding. This is all boilerplate, really. And we were to actually design it, if we design it like this is boilerplate that allows, that tells you what it's used for, that it's only used for that, and allows you recourse for an appeal process and things like that. So when we got the feedback, it was, well, if you have all this information, if you're asking all this at a timely manner, you cannot progress the sort of useless terms of abuse that we have now any further. You just put it in a different location. And I think that demonstrates that we can achieve proper informed choice and notice without listing everything. We can kind of get to the concept.
In a way, it's sort of manifest according to what you might be familiar with contracts. There's something Justin Llewellyn, I think his name was. He talks about a contract is essentially people differing over a few terms, but that the gist of the contract isn't supposed to be that important. So what we want to do is highlight the terms you actually care about, make available the other stuff. But right now, I think it is worth looking at the current application. This is not even that bad, I guess, of an application, but if you just got a job at a restaurant and you went out for social drinks the night before after training, and you woke up and tried to do this, you look at this, like, I don't want to fill that out. I mean, you're tired, you don't want to read this. And it has a lot of legal terms. I mean, it says no entendre, I mean, like Latin terms, people don't want to deal with this stuff, so I don't think people read it. And so there's this feeling of powerlessness as you sort of stand before the state to be considered. You don't even really know how you're being considered. You could make the effort, but why should you have to? The city's supposed to serve you. So I think that that what we're doing allows people to sort of really understand what they're doing, to do what they're doing in a more efficient way. And hopefully there's some other things I think I might talk about a little bit more about protecting people's data and granting people control over the information they do decide to share.
Did you have another?
Yeah, oh yeah, but the other thing I was going to say is I want to stress how simple this is because I kind of just talked a lot. But if you want the ID, or sorry, want the permit, you literally go to the site, you say you're going to use your ID, you be logged in. Then you say, I'm going to apply. There will probably be a brief loading screen because the information has to be accessed by your criminal background. It's going to go to the local law enforcement agency. It's going to have information. And then the next screen, which I didn't do, but we would just say, you're approved. And I mean, there might be more about a permit number, for example. But the process could literally be done in a couple of minutes. You feel like you knew what happened. And so a process that should be really simple, getting a liquor permit, shouldn't be hard. Actually, it is simple. So I think that that's actually is a monumental step forward in a very small time.
Yeah. And it would the only information that would be stored within regulated industry would be your permit number. So they would only know your permit number, and the other people who have the other attributes would still possess that, but you've already trusted them to hold that.
Yeah, we include that in there. This isn't mere boilerplate, right?
Well,
not
it is standard language that is applicable in a lot of different transactions. Is that how?
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so when we apply this principle, which is you have a persona, and if there is a certain party that plays the role of identity partner, as opposed to Google and Facebook or private entities or identity providers currently, if you take the private entity out, or not private, but Google or Facebook out, and you put in a new entity that is guided behavior, which is you can't sell the data for money, essentially. And you've regulated that entity like a utility, something like a utility, right? So right here, instead of Facebook, right, you have the city. The city's duty to the user is substantially different than Facebook. The interests align much more closely to a citizen's interest than Facebook would. So that changes fundamentally what can be done in this architecture. Currently, this architecture supports like 25 standard questions, none of which would be useful for this. And well, the basic demographic information. But when we talk about this second question here, that you couldn't ask that question under the current framework because Facebook's trust in what Facebook does can't support that. However, if the city was providing the identity, the city and its trust federation, the people that it trusts and trust the city, expands exponentially to law enforcement agencies, courts, other municipalities, the county, the state, so on and so forth. So, just want to hopefully make that point clear. This is really important. What we're getting to, we talked about the trust federation, which sounds kind of a fancy term, and it's about stuff that's really important. So when you have the interaction with the city, you think this should be simple. The reason we tend to think that it should be simple is you're like, well, all of these people all have the same data. They have access to each other's data. Well, sort of, they don't, what they do, but it takes a while. And so the important thing that's going on here is you're creating a way for these people to sort of link, where they can actually get the information as quickly as you don't think it should get it. Yes. So they do have access. They have to go through a string of what are called proof exercises. And they have to jump through hoops to get it. It's not that we don't trust the siloed entities to get information from each other. It's just that there's such a verification process that this would pretty much make that instantaneous. So with that in mind, we ran through a use case, and I'm using these whiteboards and I fumbled with them on purpose because we were kind of running through use cases because I thought after yesterday's presentation, probably the best way to industry possibilities of what we're talking about. So So this use case here is Doug has wants to renegotiate. I'm gonna do this down here. Doug's child support, right? So Doug has a problem with child support. All right. He hasn't been paying him. Doug has been a deadbeat dad. Let's just say that. He's going to, and we're using login as the use case here. So login. So what would happen is Doug needs a lawyer. I'm a lawyer that handles family law. Okay. Using his Muni-ID, he is going to sign into logins, and logins is going to say, okay, here's Evan, and he does this kind of thing. So we come to an agreement, and Doug engages me to help renegotiate his child support or settle child support arrears, so on and so forth. So he's giving me the permission to act as his lawyer in this matter. I go, using my municipal ID as a lawyer, I go to the relying party, which would be everything dealing with Doug's child support, and I say, I need Doug's info, okay? Because I'm Doug's lawyer. Well, it's going to ask, okay, are you a lawyer? What's your bar number? And are you really Doug's lawyer? Are you what you claim? It's going to come down here and ask those questions. The first place it's going to go is the Missouri Bar Association checkup on bar number. Make sure I'm in good standing, so on and so forth. That's pretty simple. So the Missouri Bar Association is going to go, yep, you're good. He's a lawyer. Then it's going to say, okay, but is he Doug's lawyer? Is that part of his persona? Is that part of his ID? And it can do that a couple different ways. But the most interesting way, we think, is through the letter of engagement that is now held by Tony Lai's company, LogGives. So LogGives is over here, okay? And it has the engagement letter, and it holds it in its database with all the information. So on that engagement letter, it's going to say, Evan and Doug agreed to enter into an attorney-client relationship. And then the scope of that relationship is only child support. So the only information that this verifies is that I am Doug's lawyer and I'm only allowed to represent him on this matter. And maybe possibly if I have a trust account and Doug's put money into that, I am also allowed to spend money from that trust account, okay, on any expenditures that I come across. That's pretty standard. So now what I can do is I've been granted access to any sort of issue that surrounds child support, okay? And instead of having to file and refile and prove and file here and move it and prove that I filed over here and move through that, what we call proof exercises, every time I do something for Doug, as Doug, it changes Doug's persona. So this is kind of the image. This is me in here acting as Doug. And every time I fix something for Doug, it changes Doug's persona directly. And Doug is aware of everything I'm doing because it's reflected in his municipal identity. So let's say I go to fix his child support, but he's got back taxes. Uh-oh, back taxes. Okay. So now what I can do is I can go to Doug and say, listen, I'm going to fix these back taxes. And he goes, okay. And I fix them. So now that changes Doug from what was in arrears here, right, to current. So now Doug is known as Doug who is current on his taxes. So now I can move to child support, right? This is fundamentally different than what normally happens because I would have to pay the taxes, take the tax, wait for it to process, get the tax receipt, go, take the tax receipt, prove, file that, and move on. Here, if I pay the taxes, it dynamically changes Doug's persona instantly. So Doug goes from being in back taxes to current. So now instead of waiting for a tax receipt and having to move through that proof exercise, I've instantly changed Doug's persona, and I can instantly now address the issue I needed to address to begin with. So it takes that whole time period and crunches it to instant, essentially. And so this is really how, when you extrapolate this process and this architecture of identity, and identity being in a central trusted framework, how that can change the interaction between people and their government, and how government can facilitate
ease of permitting and licensing. So if you were to do this in the business section, the business could do the same thing. The business has a persona, and they say, okay, I need to get permitted and licensed. Well, every time they get a permanent license for whatever business use they want to do, that says permanent with them. And if they have permits that need predicate permits, if they're building a building, let's say, every time they get that permit, it stays with them. And it doesn't, they don't have to resubmit information every time they go from land use to permanent licensing to whatever sort of department they're going to. It stays with them, and it changes from business that does not have the predicate permit to business with a predicate permit. And instead of going through proof exercises, it becomes part of a persona. That is the real sort of implication and power of OpenID. It becomes, it acknowledges explicitly that as you change and interact, your persona in that situation changes. And so it can verify it instantly and behave accordingly. I don't know if that made any sense. There we go. That's done. So yeah, I think the next step for us at this point now is we want to start for this KC Day of Hacking. We want to start getting prepared to build a municipal identity. And a municipal identity, when we say city, it doesn't necessarily have to be a city. It could be a private entity. So Google now is like a huge identity provider. But Google could create a different flavor of Google called Google Public Identity. And so long as it was compliant to the sort of policy, it could act in the same manner as a municipality because it would be trusted, because it would have guided behavior that normal Google does not. So when we say municipal ID, we just mean entity that is compliant and will behave in a certain manner that is regulated, much like a utility does, right? Utility is a private company, but they've got a commission over them, and they're regulated in what they can and cannot do. So a little more than a normal industry.
And getting to what he's saying about, as far as going forward, getting to what he's saying about making sure that people behave properly, one of the big parts of this project, there was such a little bit more yesterday, we didn't really revisit as much today, is we work on system rules, whereas all the people who participate in the system and provide it have to sort of agree to these rules. And so I think going forward, the summer, I know Evan's already done a lot of work on drafting sort of system rules, but I think that would be, if I were the last of the summer, I think that would be the next focus, to come up with the rules that people have to play by to ensure that this actually is a meaningful step forward and not just sort of sound and fury that doesn't.
Yeah, and we made a presentation on the system rules. We demonstrated those, and I've drafted some initial ones, but and they're on GitHub, and I'm sure we can put the link up to the repository. You can go and see them. They're under the MIT open license, so you can fork it and go to town and do whatever you want. But I think where we're at now is we have to run through some use cases and iterate a bunch to really inform the system rules as to what are the big overarching policies that we're going to implement when it comes to something like this, right? Where it's a lawyer acting in the system as somebody else. What sort of agreements are we talking about between parties, between the identity provider? What sort of mechanisms can the client give permission or revoke permission? All those are going to be manifest in the system rules and an agreement and a policy on sort of the macro scale, and also in a micro participation agreements. So,
just wanted to yield flags.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule.